Story time with Blesso and Leah. Samson, the strongest man. The birth of Samson. Samson's story begins a long time ago in the land of Israel. One day, the angel of the Lord appeared to the wife of a man called Manoah, who was from the tribe of Dan. The angel said, "Even though you have no children, you will soon have a son. Don't drink any wine and don't eat any food that isn't kosher. Your son's hair must never be cut, for he shall be a Nazarite, a special servant of God. From the time of his birth, he will begin to rescue Israel from the Philistines."
The woman ran and told her husband what the angel had said to her. Manoah prayed, "O Lord, please let the man from God come back to us again and give us more instruction about the child you are going to give to us." The Lord answered his prayer, and the angel of God appeared once again to his wife as she was sitting alone in a field. So she quickly ran and found her husband and told him, "The same man is here again." Manoah ran back to his wife and asked, "Are you the same man who talked to my wife the other day?" "Yes," he replied. "Be sure that your wife follows the instructions I gave her. She must not eat grapes or raisins or drink any wine or beer." "What is your name?" Manoah asked. "My name is a secret," the angel replied. Manoah took a young goat and a grain offering and offered it as a sacrifice. As the flames from the altar were leaping up towards the sky, the angel ascended in the fire. Manoah and his wife fell face downward. "We will die," Manoah cried to his wife, "for we have seen God." But his wife said, "If God was going to kill us, he wouldn't have accepted our sacrifice and told these wonderful things and done these miracles." Just as the angel promised, she had a baby boy and they named him Samson. The Lord blessed him as he grew up. They followed God's instruction and never cut his hair. The Lord's power began to strengthen Samson.
Samson and his riddle.
One day, Samson went down to the Philistine town of Timnah. He noticed a young and attractive Philistine woman. He went back home and told his father and mother, "There is a Philistine woman down at Timnah who caught my attention. Get her for me as my bride. I want to marry her." His father and mother protested, "Why do you have to go to those heathen Philistines to get a wife? Can't you find someone in our own clan among all our people?" But Samson told his father, "She is the one I want to marry." His parents didn't know that it was the Lord who was leading Samson to do this, for the Lord looking to overcome the Philistines who were ruling over his people. So Samson went down to Timnah with his father and mother.
As he was going to the vineyards there, he heard a lion roaring. Suddenly, the power of the Lord made Samson very strong. He tore the lion apart with his bare hands, as if it were a goat. But he didn't tell his parents what he had done.
Then he went on and talked to the young woman, and he liked her. A few days later, Samson went back to marry her. On the way, he left the road to look at the lion he had killed, and he was surprised to find a swarm of bees and some honey inside the dead body. He scraped the honey out of his hands and ate it as he was walking along. Then he went to his father and mother and gave them some. They ate it, but Samson did not tell them that he had taken the honey from the dead body of a lion. His father went to the woman's house, and Samson gave a banquet there. As was the custom, the Philistines sent 30 young men to stay with him. Samson said to them, "Let me tell you a riddle. I'll bet each one of you a piece of fine linen and a change of fine clothes that you can't tell me its meaning before the 7 days of the wedding feast are over." "Tell us your riddle," they said. "Let's hear it." Samson replied, "Out of the eater came something to eat. Out of the strong came something sweet." 3 days later, they had still not figured out what the riddle meant. On the fourth day, they said to Samson's wife, "Trick your husband into telling us what the riddle means. If you don't, we will set fire to your father's house and burn you with it. You only invited us so that you could rob us, didn't you?" So Samson's wife went to him in tears and said, "You don't love me, you just hate me. You told my friends a riddle and didn't tell me what it means." He said, "Look, I haven't even told my father and mother. Why should I tell you?" She cried about it for the whole 7 days of the feast and kept nagging Samson to explain the riddle. On the seventh day, Samson gave in and told her. She immediately told the Philistines, and the 30 men of the city went to Samson with the answer to his riddle. "What could be sweeter than honey? What could be stronger than a lion?" they said gleefully. Samson was furious. "If you hadn't been told this by my wife, you would never have come up with the answer." Now he owed them 30 outfits of fine clothes. Suddenly the power of the Lord made him strong, and he went down to the Philistine city, where he killed 30 men. He stripped them of their clothes and gave them to the men who had solved the riddle. After that, Samson went back home, still angry about what had happened. His wife was given to the man who had been his best man at the wedding.
Samson's revenge on the Philistines.
Sometime later, Samson went to visit his wife during the wheat harvest and took her a young goat.
He told her father, "I want to go to my wife's room." He told to Samson, "I really thought that you hated her, so I gave her to your best man at the wedding. But her younger sister is prettier anyway. You can have her instead. This time I'm not going to be responsible for what I do to the Philistines." Samson fumed, so he went and caught 300 foxes, 2 at a time. He tied their tails together and put torches in the knots. Then he set fire to the torches and turned the foxes loose in the Philistine wheat field. In this way he burned up not only the wheat that was harvested, but also the wheat that was still in the fields. The olive orchards were burned too. When the Philistines learned that Samson had done this because his father-in-law had given Samson's wife to his best man, they punished his wife and burnt down her father's house. Samson told them, "So this is how you act. I swear that I won't stop until I pay you back." He attacked them furiously and killed many people. Then he went and stayed in the cave in the cliff of Etam. The Philistines came and camped in the Judah and attacked the town of Lehi. Men of Judah asked them, "Why are you attacking us?" They answered, "We have come to take Samson as prisoner and to treat him as how he treated us."
So these 3,000 men of Judah went to the cave in the cliff at Etam and said to Samson, "Don't you know that Philistines are our rulers? What have you done to us?" He answered, "I did to them just what they did to me." They told him, "We have come here to tie you up, so we can hand you over to them." Samson said, "Give me your word that you won't kill me yourself." "All right," they said, "we are only going to tie you up and hand you over to them. We won't kill you." So they tied him up with 2 new ropes and brought him back from the cliff. When he got to Lehi, the Philistines came running towards him, shouting at him. Suddenly, the power of the Lord made him strong, and he broke the ropes around his arms and hands as if they were burnt thread. Then he found a jawbone of a donkey that had recently died. He reached down and picked it up and killed 1,000 men with it. So Samson sang, "With the jawbone of a donkey I killed 1,000 men. With the jawbone of a donkey I piled them up into piles." The place where this happened was named Ramath Lehi. Samson became very thirsty, so he called to the Lord and said, "You gave me this victory. Am I going to die of thirst and be captured by these heathen Philistines?" Then God opened a hollow place in the ground at Lehi, and water came out of it. Samson drank it and began to feel much better. So the spring was named Hakor, meaning caller, as Samson had called to God for help. Samson led Israel for 20 years while the Philistines ruled the land. One day, Samson fell in love with a Philistine woman named Delilah who lived in Sorek Valley. He thought she liked him, but she had been bribed by 5 Philistine leaders who offered her 1100 pieces of silver to find out the secret of Samson's strength. So Delilah said to Samson, "Please tell me, what makes you so strong? If someone wanted to tie you up and make you helpless, how could he do it?" Samson answered, "If they tie me up with 7 new bowstrings, they are not dried out, I will be as weak as anybody else." So the Philistine leaders brought Delilah 7 new bowstrings that were not dried out, and she tied Samson up. She had some men waiting in another room. So she shouted, "Samson, the Philistines are coming." But he snapped the bowstrings just as thread breaks when fire touches it. So they still did not know the secret of his strength.
Delilah told Samson, "Look, you have been making me a fool of me and not telling me the truth. Please tell me, how could someone tie you up?" He told her, "If they tie me with a new rope that have been never used before, I will be weak as anybody else." So Delilah bought some new ropes and tied him up. Then she shouted, "Samson, the Philistines are coming." The men were waiting in the other room, but he snapped the ropes off his arms like the thread. Delilah said to Samson, "You're still making a fool of me and not telling me the truth."
Delilah exclaimed, "How can you say you love me when you don't mean it? You have made me a fool 3 times, and you still haven't told me what makes you so strong." She kept pestering Samson day after day, and he got tired of her bothering him. "My hair has never been cut," Samson explained. "I have been dedicated to God as a Nazarite from the time I was born. If my hair was cut, I would lose my strength and be as weak as anybody else." Delilah sent a secret message to the Philistine kings and said, "Come back one more time. He has told me the truth." They brought money with them. Delilah made Samson to sleep in her lap, and then Samson's 7 locks of hair were cut off. Then she shouted, "Samson, the Philistines are coming." He woke up and thought, "I'll get loose and go free, as always." He did not know that the Lord had left him and he had lost his strength. The Philistines easily captured Samson and put out his eyes. They took him to Gaza, chained him with bronze chains, and put him to work grinding at the mill in the prison. But his hair started growing back. The Philistines met together to celebrate and offer a great sacrifice to their god Dagon. They sang, "Our God has given us victory over our enemy Samson." They were enjoying themselves and said, "Call Samson to entertain us." When the people saw Samson, they sang praise to their God. "Dagon has given us victory over our enemy, who devastated our land and killed so many of us." Samson said to the boy who was leading him by the hand, "Let me touch the columns that hold up the building. I want to lean on them." The building was crowded with men and women. All 5 Philistine leaders were there, and there were about 3,000 men and women on the roof, watching Samson entertain them. Then Samson prayed, "Sovereign Lord, please remember me. Please God, give me my strength just this one time more, so that with the one blow I can get even with the Philistines for putting out my 2 eyes." So Samson took hold of the 2 middle columns holding up the building. Putting one hand on each column, he pushed against them and shouted, "Let me die with the Philistines." He pushed with all his might, and the building fell down on the 5 kings and everybody else. Samson killed more people at his death than he had killed during his life. He will be remembered as a man who had great strength given to him by God, but also as a man with great weakness that led him to disobey God and end up in all kinds of trouble and suffering.